Was there a particular challenge in all of this, or something that you loved the most in Theros? What does it bring that's unique compared to the rest of the D&D multiverse in terms of setting? Obviously, we've talked about the gods at length, but what's the overall feel that you think is really unique?
So it's there in the title. We landed after much debate on the title of Mythic Odysseys of Theros for this book, and we really wanted it to have a mythic feel to it, not just in the sense of super awesome, but in the sense of the adventures that you're going on have a weight to them in a cosmic sense. Um, Tying it to the gods is one way of doing that, but there's a lot of there's supernatural gifts in the book that your character can begin with, that like when you're playing a character even at first level who part of your story is, yeah, the god Perforos made you in his forge. That is a backstory for your character that has a weight to it that I think is really special and is pretty unique in D&D worlds.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts about this entire product is it is that Greek Roman mythology kind of inspiration of, okay, you're a hero, but it's not like in D&D where maybe you started out in a village and then you slowly became more and more powerful. um Quite often you were destined, like you said, someone forged you, maybe, or maybe you
Right.
erupted out of someone's head and you were a dream they had, right? Like that's the
Right.
level of epicness at level one that things start, and you have like a variety of benefits for doing so. They're not, none of them overpowered by any means, but it does set you on the path of, listen, I am this Hercules like character, right?
Yeah.
I have this predetermined destiny, and then maybe I won't succeed
Exactly.
because this is D&D.
Right.
But it's definitely a different tone.
Yeah,
Um,
and maybe you did come from a tiny village, and it seemed like you were no one. But at the moment of your birth, there was a tremendous omen across the night sky, or the wind blew in a particular way, and an oracle said, "Oh, this kid's important."
Another way to look at this is almost like superhero D&D, since superhero and comic book myths are largely based on the same kind of level of like, yeah, I was in the village, but turns out my dad's a god, so I got things to do.
Yeah, I think the supernatural gifts don't have like that huge of an impact on your character's abilities, but they do on your character's story where they
Yeah.
can. Um, so yeah, if you like, if you're playing a character who's a divine soul sorcerer who was made in Perforos's forge, then that that supernatural gift can become a lens through which you view all of your character's capabilities.
Hmm.
I'm a divine soul sorcerer because I was made on the forge of Perforos, and I cast awesome ninth level spells when I reached level 17 because I was made on the forge of Perforos. So your supernatural gift informs the way your character develops. It's not just here's the superpowers that you have at level one.
There's a concept in Theros of fate and destiny. Most people go through their lives kind of bound by fate. They are, from the time they're born to the time they die, their life is just kind of going through what fate has woven for them. Heroes are a unique group. These are individuals that can shape their own destiny, that they can kind of there's there's literally a sense that they are not bound by that there's an unpredictability about them, that there is something they are not necessarily beholden to the mechanics of the world itself. Um, and so and it could be again this idea that if gods have somehow you were born on some sort of on the eve of some important battle, or you were, you know, selected by some god for whatever reason because something your parents have done or whatever it is, you can choose to embrace that concept or turn away from those things. So there is this sense that even though the gods are involved in the characters' lives and the heroes' lives, they're not enslaved to that concept. There is the sense of you do what you will with that information, and so it can be really empowering, especially with say there is this weird or interesting humanistic strain in Theros where, again, this can get into like the nature of the gods themselves, but that okay, I am gonna get into the nature of Theros for a moment because this kind of plays into this what heroes mean and like, so Theros is a unique world in that the gods themselves. Okay, so in Theros, there's this thing called Nyx, and Nyx is this. Almost looks like a night sky with, it's this star field, and this Nyx has this interesting quality that it picks up on human consciousness and human beings, mortals, not just humans. Sorry, all the kind of mortal races on Theros kind of feed into this consciousness and can manifest entities like the gods. And so the gods themselves actually owe their existence to mortals. And whether or not they know that, some gods are very aware of it. Like there's a god Krufix who is aware of this concept, but not necessarily all the gods might not necessarily know it to the same degree. And not all mortals understand this concept. And so there's this humanistic concept that even the power of the gods, who then can gift mortals with great boons and amazing magical items and can meddle in their lives, but they still owe their existence in some degree to mortals. And so when you look at mortal heroes themselves, there's something very, very empowering about them, even though they are kind of embroiled in all the kind of infighting and pettiness of the gods. So it's a really fascinating concept. And this book digs into the relationship of mortals and their gods. It really plays with the piety system that was introduced in the DMG and kind of blows that out in a way that we haven't really seen before. The gods here, like in kind of Greek mythological tradition, are very active in the lives of mortals. So all of this is kind of infused in the book. And so all heroes, whether you embrace kind of your patronage of a god or you are turning away from it, you're still going to have to deal with the gods or the servants of gods in some way. And so it feels very Greek in that way, and which is what the world that Magic the Gathering created with Theros was trying to do. This is their top-down Greek-inspired world, and so we're translating Greek mythology inspiration through Theros, and it's fascinating to see the what developed were these kind of nods to traditional Greek mythology, but then also how Theros introduces very unique concepts as well.
And that piety system that is in the DMG, you do blow it out quite a bit. Like you have varying levels of piety to whatever god you've chosen within the pantheon, and that can affect your character quite a bit in terms of either skill checks or magical effects and all kinds of things, right?
Correct. And you could gain and lose piety. This isn't a fixed thing, so it's this dynamic thing. And you might be the most devoted to your god, but something in the story may happen that might make you actively turn against that god or try to resist that god's influence, where if things are spiraling away from what you see as the right thing to do. So it is supposed to be this kind of ongoing relationship that changes over time throughout the course of a campaign.
I very much want to take this piety system and start using it for warlock patrons, actually.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting concept. The idea of unlocking more patron gifts is a fun thing. I like that.
Me and our little intrepid group of Magic creatives, Doug Beyer, Jenna Helen, Richard Wooders, Brady Dommermuth, and assortment of others that were there, but we were the core group. We came up with Theros, and it was kind of we wanted to do something different and cool and neat, and we knew that at that time period, a lot of the Magic fans were clamoring for something Greek inspired, and we just knew that the iron was hot. Purphoros' forge was hot at that time, so we jammed out this world and filled it full of cool stuff, and it did really well, and now to have that thing come way full circle, to make a D&D book on it and to be a part of that with the D&D team is super cool, because since then there has been, since I left Magic, there's been another iteration of Theros, and the Magic team has created a whole new bunch of cool things for it and has fleshed out worlds. Like the underworld has been way more fleshed out than when I was on the team. They created cool new Minotaur cities and a lot of other neat things that have since then. A new god has come into being since I left the team. So it's really fun to see it. It's really fun to see other creatives take something that we made back then and to build on it and to iterate on it, to make it even more cool and more fun. And I'm sure that Theros there's going to be a third iteration of Theros, and they'll build it out even more. And so it's kind of surreal and really cool. And I'm super proud of the work we did on it.
And Emily, thank you so much. Is there anything I didn't ask that maybe I should have asked?
One thing that you wouldn't know to ask is that during the making of this book, we had the great privilege of having Demetrios Ferradinos in the building, who is our coworker and an awesome dude. And he's Greek, and we had many great conversations with him at his family restaurant, eating Greek food, talking about Greek life and him growing up as in the Greek culture. And he helped out with all kinds of cultural notes on getting us into the vibe of we speaking the Greek language, and he came up with a lot of the names for the playable races. And with his help, he kind of got our brains into thinking like a Greek, and really highlighting sort of the fun-loving, hardworking, family-oriented way the Greek culture thinks as best he could. And it was awesome to have him on, and he was a great help to making this book.
Purchase your copy of Mythic Odysseys of Theros today on D&D Beyond. Link in the description.